I'd like to welcome you all to the City of Cocoa Beach Board of Adjustment meeting for November 16th, 2022. And can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. My country.
Kiwanis.
Yeah.
Can we, Rhonda? No. Tabitha? Can we have a roll call, please?
Bill Kaiser.
Here.
John Haynes.
Here.
Raylan Manning.
Here.
Michael Goldberg.
Here.
Joshua Jackson.
Here.
Jenna Tuntis.
Here.
Did you all get a chance of reviewing the minutes? From when was our last meeting? We did do it last month. That's good.
Yeah, I read the minutes and I'd like to make a motion to accept them as presented.
I was gonna make one edit.
Of course.
I think a statement I made about the, having reviewed the property on Google Earth may have been captured as a visit to the property. Just on the last part, I would just strike, Mr. Jackson has visited the site recreationally, but not in an official capacity. I meant to say that I viewed it on Google Earth in a software package, not personally. I don't believe I've ever been to the property.
For Highlands.
For
239.
I'm sorry. No, actually, I have been there. I was going back to a previous one. Forget that. I'm sorry. I withdraw it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know contractors, they bid jobs by Google Earth.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's incredible what you can do with it. But no, I'm sorry. I was referring to the 8 for sewer, not to the
No, how about this meeting?
not to the outlet.
It's our next, we gotta do a motion for minutes.
I made the motion.
Okay, seconded? Anyone?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next thing is any disclosure conflict. I'll start off. I went by the property today, checked it out. So, or yesterday was, excuse me. Walked around and that's about it. No one was there, didn't talk to anyone.
Yeah, I visited the property today. I also did an appraisal on the property in 2018 for the counsel of the owner at that time. I don't know that that really matters at this point. And I also made a phone call to a Mrs. Rubino, hoping to clarify what seems to be some conflicts, but I understand her husband is here tonight, so he'll address that, I'm certain.
Okay. And I guess the attorney, you want to swear in some witnesses?
Yes, I'll start out by saying this is a public hearing for a review of a request for a variance per Cocoa Beach Land Development Code, Section 3-28D2E, to allow a residential dock to have a north side setback and a south side setback less than the required minimum of 15 feet. Any individual, including the applicant, staff, witnesses, or members of the public who plan to speak or offer testimony during the public hearing, please rise and be sworn in by the clerk.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in these proceedings? Yes. You have been sworn. I just want to make a notation that I have also been sworn in to present, have a notarized affidavit for that. That's been added to the record.
Very good. A variance is quasi-judicial in nature, which requires our public hearing to comply with procedural requirements established in Florida law. Quasi-judicial proceedings are less formal than proceedings before a circuit court, but are more formal than some other types of meetings and must follow basic standards of notice and due process. Decisions must be based on competent, substantial evidence. Please note that only competent, substantial, fact-based testimony or evidence will be considered by the board in its deliberation and voting on this item. Pure speculation or mere opinion not based on competent facts cannot be legally considered by the board in weighing the appropriateness of the variance. Lay testimony with fact-based support may be considered competent and substantial evidence. If you intend to speak, please keep this in mind. When you come forward, please state your name clearly for the record, whether or not you've been sworn in, and your qualifications or interest in the matter. Clerk, has this item been properly advertised?
Yes, this item was properly advertised and the record includes the documentation to that effect.
Okay, at this time, if any board member has a conflict of interest that would prohibit them from voting on this item, please disclose this for the record. Does anybody have a conflict? Okay, and you've already made your ex parte communication disclosures. So staff will proceed with your presentation on this item.
Good evening. Christy Anderson, I'm the principal planner for the city. Tonight we have two variance requests for a property located at 911 Bolly Road. So this is an aerial of the property. It's currently zoned RS1 single family residential, has a future land use of low density residential. The area is showing the subject parcel outlined in red. This request, according to Cokebeach Land Development Code, section 328D2E, the minimum side setback for a waterside accessory structure is 20% of the waterside lot width, or 15 feet, whichever is greater. The applicant is requesting to allow residential dock to have a north side setback of 4 feet and a south side setback of 4 feet instead of the required minimum of 15. The subject parcel contains a single family residence built in 1959. The current owner did purchase the property in 2021, according to the Brevard County Property Appraiser's records. The property contains a natural shoreline with a mature mangrove frontage that extends along most of the waterfront property line. And in order to preserve the existing mangroves, the applicant proposes to construct a 4-foot walkway leading out to a triangular-shaped boat dock. This is a copy of the survey with the proposed plan overlaid. This is a close-up version of it, and I just want to make a clarification that the applicant has revised this footprint slightly, in which he'll go into detail on, but the setbacks will remain the same setback requests. These are some photographs provided by the applicant of the existing backyard. And some aerials provided by the applicant. And always your criteria for variance approval. If you have any questions for staff, I'd be happy to address those now.
When I talked to you this afternoon, you mentioned there, I didn't quite hear you, they're gonna take away and just leave a 4-foot walkway along the whole seawall or
Basically,
shoreline?
yes. So the triangular portion of, main portion of that is actually mangrove. So he'll go into detail about the reduction in the footprint.
Right.
So actually it'd be more of a 4-foot walkway that extends out.
But am I wrong in assuming that if that was a 3-foot walkway, we wouldn't be here tonight? If it was just a 3-foot walkway, it's a,
No, it's because of the orientation of the mangroves and the side setback requirement is 15 feet, so you have to maintain that 15-foot side setback regardless if the structure is 3 feet wide or 4 feet wide.
I thought we had that rule where 3-foot walkway they could have
Along the shore.
along the shoreline,
So
exactly.
Yeah, there's no problem.
we do have a provision
Get out
in
of the way.
code if the waterside accessory structure projects no more than 3 feet into the waterway,
Right.
then they can go up to 5 feet to the side property lines. So the mangroves kind of limit them on at least one of the sides, but that wouldn't give them very much projection into the waterway, so.
So in other words, he's still gonna take out some of the mangroves.
No.
Not allowed to, can't touch the mangrove.
And I think the design is drawn that way to avoid, conflicting with the mangroves and or removing them.
Okay.
What is the rule about the mangroves? That you can't touch them?
No, well, you also trim them.
They,
just
well,
so
the
that
city
they
of
pull
Coconino,
that.
you do not
I don't think so.
permit the trimming or alteration of mangroves without the authorization of FDEP.
Yeah.
So they cannot be altered. Basically, once they get to a certain height, you're not allowed to trim them. So there's a lot of rules and regulations when it comes to the protection of mangroves.
From the picture, it looks like there was a dock maybe or something, and
Yes,
the mangroves
I-
have kind of overtaken it from the
Yes,
previous
and,
owner.
I haven't found any dock permit history on it, but it is quite old. So
There's
it
something there,
predates
but
any
it's-
of our existing records.
Okay.
Are you finished? Oh, okay. I don't want to interrupt you. Till you're done. I just have a quick question. In the applicant's letter of intent, and this may be better asked of the applicant, it states that the property abuts a waterway with 19.67 feet of shoreline. But in your background analysis, it shows 34.48 feet.
That's the boundary of the rear property line is the 34 point.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that that's
And I
factual.
don't know if that was subtracting the mangrove area from it. You have to explain that.
Okay, I just wanted to see why there's such a big variance. Okay.
And that's the 100 feet?
Well, if there's no further questions, it's the applicant's time to come up.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Dr. Scott Herbert. My residence is 351 South Lakeside Drive, Satellite Beach, Florida. My background in research making me an expert in this. I have a bachelor's degree in marine science. I have it in the minor geography. I've got a dual master's degree in marine biology and coastal zone management. I have 75% of a PhD in biological oceanography. I have a completed PhD in epidemiology and environmental impacts and infections. I'm a board certified ecologist with the Ecological Society of America, which is recognized in law by the state of Florida. And so I'm going to explain what we are asking for on this variance request and give you a background on it and explain to you what's going on. So, let me see if I got this. Okay. And this was sent to everybody before. This is the property. As you can see, Brevard County is a little bit off in their Brevard County is a little bit off on their property boundaries, how they laid it out. Really, it comes a little bit over this way, and this actually shifts. Here's the fence line here. So it's a very small, pie-shaped lot.
Bless you.
Okay, so extending out the projections from the property boundary, it comes into a point, and you can see that. Now, what I've circled there is the mangroves that are cantilevering over. So it looks like the mangroves actually go way, way out far in the water, which they do, actually. They go pretty far out. But that's a cantilevered area, so you could safely put the structure underneath it without impacting. So I want to let you guys understand that. That's kind of where we're walking out a little bit. Now, the survey and the engineering is a lot more accurate. This is my drawing. And when you do it with the engineering survey, you'll see it's a little bit more accurate with that. Okay, so I have some photos here. These are the mangroves, and as I heard you guys ask earlier about the existing structure. Okay, as you can see, the mangroves have taken over that existing structure, and realistically, I've been in the water, and I went through the whole area, and in this location here, that existing structure is probably about this big. Okay? And there are no, and also too, the ruling is once the structure becomes derelict, which it is, we have to start the permitting process from the beginning. So there's no way we could even justify calling this a repair. And also too, it's too low. Most structures now you get at least 5 feet above mean high water due to the fact of flooding. And as we all know, we've lived here a long time. With all the hurricanes that come through, all the see too. And then there's another thing, I know there were some questions about mangroves and mangrove trimming. Here's the thing, you see how the roots are coming down? It is illegal to cut roots. So even though you can trim through the mangroves to put a dock in, that's provided that the mangrove itself, and you can only bring it down to 4 foot, itself is fine, but once you have a root system in there, which you have, and if you look at these images, you have roots coming down from the top canopy also. State of Florida will not allow those to be touched. You can't touch them. It's considered illegal. So you're not allowed to touch roots regardless of where they come down. So we have that issue going on with this property also. Here's another example of the roots coming down. And then this is just a side view of how far the mangroves come out to about 12 feet from the shoreline. Okay, so it gives you an idea. Again, root systems are coming down, and these are pictures probably now about six months old or so, give or take, but I know the roots have dropped down further than that. So they're already starting to come into the water. So we have to avoid it. I mean, there's no way around it. So here's the actual survey of the property. We have 19.67 feet. Okay? Now, going forward with that, according to your setback rules of 15 feet, I did the math on this, I am technically, on this property, 14.33 feet short. Okay, so if you put a dock in, you want 15 feet from one side, 15 feet from another, that's 30. Then you have 4 foot, that's 34 feet. I only have 19.67 to work with, so that rule gets thrown out. I mean, you can't, because technically, I don't know what you can do, because you have crossing over setbacks. And because your ruling says the greater of the two, technically if you followed it according to your ruling, which I wrote here, 20%. So it's 20% or 15 feet, whichever is greater. If you did it by 20%, I actually did the mathematics on it, it comes out to be a setback of like 3.97, so a 4 foot setback on each side if you follow the 20% rule. But the 15 foot won't work, so that's where we're at. The other thing that's nice about that 20% aspect, and I'll show you on the picture, but it keeps us out of mangrove impacts. Okay, now I know you guys have this, and I forgot to send you, I guess, failed to send the other part of it, or it didn't come through on email, one or the other. Obviously, we're not asking for a projection out, because we are within the projected rules, which is 20% of the waterway. It's about 108 feet, 110 feet across the water from that location, so 20 feet is under that 20% rule, but we're not asking for a variance for that. We're only asking for a variance for the setback, because everything else is within the rules. And again, images here, so let me see where we're at. Okay, so this is what the structure would be like, and okay, so to give you an idea, here's what actually is happening. Sorry to get through that. That checkerboard area right there is the mangroves. The application we did put in has this, and really all it is a walkway coming out to a very tiny terminal end. And if you really look at it, it terminates in the middle of the property. So avoiding mangrove impacts, number one, not being along a far projection out in the water, okay, and we are trying to fit the minimization rules by just having a walkway coming out, still landing smack in the middle of the property, and avoiding all impacts to mangroves. And that's really all what is really goes in the permit application. So that whole mangrove area is trying to be avoided. And with the 4 foot setback, again, it goes along those lines that extends outward. Okay? And this is what the design looks like. Some of the back section here is extended from the property and outward, and that's what the terminal end is to look like. It's nothing very large. It's just to provide access to the water. Like everybody else. Okay. Any other questions?
What prompted a change?
Oh, actually, I don't think it was changed. Maybe it was forgot. I wasn't put in originally. That was the original was that little finger thing coming out, avoiding the mangroves. So it might have been just an accident, I believe.
I think it was just how the drawing, I see
Maybe.
that it was part of the doc.
Maybe, yeah.
I don't know if that original document was provided at the time.
Right, yeah, it's just, that was actually the whole time that we were trying to avoid mangrove impact 100% on this also. And the reality is, when you look at the derelict document, like, if I can't go through it, it's just, you can't go through that whole spot. And I did read some of the letters of, from some of the individuals and neighbors, and they all support, going on the original location, but I can't. I mean, he's talking about impacting mangroves, but the end point is still in the same location where the original end point would have been with the original structure. We're just trying to avoid, and really it's not that far off, it's only 2 feet over. So, and again, following the 20% setback rule. If we follow the 20% setback rule and not the 15%, 4 foot is actually greater than the 20% setback rule based on the amount of linear shoreline there is, if you do the math on it. So technically, you could apply the 20% rule on that. I mean, I know your rules are your rules, which is the greater, or, you know, that we have to go by, but that's where we're at.
Mr. Herber, I brought this up originally, and I'm not certain how significant it is, but you're stating that there's only 19 point some odd feet of frontage.
6, 7, yeah.
But that's not correct.
That's what the survey says.
No, actually, it says that's the straight line distance. It doesn't include the curve. And I don't know how that plays into, but for reference, the back of the house is 20 feet. So
Yeah.
it's clear that that's not only 19.67 feet.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're gonna talk about the tiny little bit of arc there, we're still well under 30 feet. I mean, I ran a tape measure out there, it's just not there.
Yeah, no, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just
Yeah.
going with the facts that other references, such as the county records and the plat, show 34.48 feet.
I can only go what the survey says, and that's done by a licensed surveyor.
Okay, but how significant, if it were 34 feet, which it does appear to be, how does that change your?
Well, let's say if it is 34 feet, the problem is there are 2 massive mangroves right smack in the middle,
Okay,
and there is no way we can get through them. The trunks on them are like this.
okay,
We can't. And then there's just root systems all in there. So let's say if that is a correct number,
right.
and I'm not arguing with
No,
you.
no,
I'm
sure.
just going with what I know from when the surveyors,
Uh-huh.
and that's all I can go by. But is that, let's say if that is true, we still can't go up the middle on it.
Okay,
It's just, you can't, because these are well-established, and you went to the property, right?
of course, yes.
So you saw the well-established mangroves, they're huge,
Certainly, yeah.
and they're beautiful, and they got a great canopy, but their root systems are coming down in the middle of that thing. So we would still have to come here and ask, can we go
I
around?
understand. I just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify
Yeah,
that
no,
point.
totally
Yeah,
understand,
okay.
thank you.
And then I have one other question for you. I did a little bit of research on the property back. I work in real estate, so I have some access to some historical data and such. And a prior owner represented to the public that a dock could be built where the mangrove exists if a mitigation process were to take place. I want to ask your professional opinion. Is that true or not? Or
Well, let's put it this way. The state regulations under mangroves, it's minimization and avoidance, right?
Mhm.
What we have here, we have an opportunity to avoid. So the state will not permit you if you can avoid, or permit it if you can avoid it. Now, can you mitigate for mangrove impacts? You can if it's in the public interest.
Okay.
And then it is extremely difficult. And sometimes in mangrove impacts, let's say if they gotta take it out, then if you can't mitigate on site, or they may not allow you to mitigate on site, you need to find an off-site place that will let you do it, and then there's a 5-year monitoring, and it just goes on and on and on. But still, the number one thing is minimization and avoidance.
Okay.
And they're just gonna be like, go around.
Sure. Well, you're the professional.
Yeah,
I wanted to make sure
and
that.
I've done permitting
understand.
similar
Okay.
to this stuff, so yeah, I understand what you're asking for, and I get the same, you're not the only person who gets in this question all the
Okay.
time. Hey, can I take this mangrove out? Sort of, but it has to be in the public interest. There has to be some real true reason it needs to be taken out. Like, for instance, a seawall collapse, or it's impeding navigation. Things like that. Those are aspects that could be, to what extent it can be. You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah, okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sir, what would happen if we were to deny you the variance?
Well, they wouldn't be able to put a,
You would try to mitigate it, wouldn't you?
no,
You wouldn't
you
even?
can't mitigate, well, getting it, they can't mitigate. There's no way the state's gonna allow mitigation of that. They're just not. So if you denied the variance, then the homeowners would be right where they are right now. With,
You
you
go
know,
donate to them 2 acres of shoreline?
yeah. There actually, it's funny, there is Blue Waves mitigation, and I think the Blue Waves mitigation, last I heard, is depending on what the value is, I think mitigation costs right now are running somewhere between $250,000 to $300,000 a point. And a Blue Waves mitigation, and when it's Blue Waves mitigation, the points are a lot higher. I've seen some mitigation areas where some people have to get 35 points or more. I mean, it's crazy. And I'm working on a project right now, I just with mitigation, and it's the property, and I'm not to disclose whose property it is, but I will say the area the mitigation on it is gonna be 4.44 points, and the developer is gonna have to pay $1.2 million just in mitigation credits alone. And that is just a garbagey piece of land that's been commercially used over the time and stuff. You're not talking about a waterway with mangroves, you know, on a, state waters. I know it sounds simple to me, but it's really not, and it's a lot of work, let's put it that way. And most of the time, unless it's a legitimate reason, the state's gonna say no.
Okay, I was just curious what it was for mangroves. I know people who have given 10-to-1 ratios for wetlands.
Yeah, exactly, so you know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
When did you purchase your property?
I did not, I'm representing the homeowners, but one of the owners is here today.
When did she purchase property?
Hmm?
When did they purchase the property?
I just want to ask you that.
believe July 2021.
Okay. I'll relay that, July 2021,
Thank you.
approximately.
I have no further, anyone else have any further questions? You laid it out pretty simple for us, I think.
So thank you, appreciate your time.
Is there any audience who would like to speak in favor of this? Is there any in the audience who'd like to be opposed to this? She's the closest. Come on up, Mrs. Scott.
Janice Scott, Cocoa Beach. I oppose this size dock. I understand what the applicant's representative said about the mangroves. But basically, on all these end of the canal lots where people have very, very small frontage anyway, it's always very touchy to not completely negatively impact the people that are already there and block the front of their property from their enjoyment and use of the water too. So, I know there was a lot of confusion about the existing dock there, but, I just don't think this should be given any of the 4-foot setbacks or what was asked for, maybe a fishing peninsula or something. It's very, very small that wouldn't extend out past the mangroves because the mangroves seem to be going to move towards the center of this canal. And then what? So the other thing, I don't know whether it's relevant to the board or not, but this property is being rented out on Airbnb illegally to the city. It had a permit to conduct a business, and it's not currently in whatever. It has been rented out about 67 times recently. Thank you.
Sorry, did you say illegally?
Well, can I clarify this?
Yeah.
Please.
I'm not the code enforcer for Cocoa Beach, but I do hear about the rules, and you're supposed to have it registered with the city if you're renting out transient, and this property is not currently registered. Thank you. Oh, can I say one more thing? There's one more issue. I think the permit that has not been closed out yet in the building department was for an attached garage, and I believe it's a detached garage. You all visited the property, so you would know.
Who is next? Who raised their hand?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, come on up.
Yeah, and I filed I sent you all an
You can come
email.
up and, officially state your name and address.
Yeah, my name's Kurt Green, and I live at 515 Cocoa House Boulevard, on the adjacent property to where they've applied to the 4-foot setback. And I sent you all an email with a packet of pictures. Did you all get that?
I think I just got it today.
Christie said you were getting all of that. Were you, Christie?
Yeah, we have it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so those pictures mangroves were massively trimmed then. Where I have arrows on those pictures, you can actually see that the old dock was south of those mangroves and exposed. I have arrows to it. So I feel that these mangroves have also been, since those pictures for the records, those mangroves may have been let grow just to get a variance. I think that's a little disingenuous. I also don't see on the survey, because that's projected out to the very limit of the riparian rights of the waterway, I don't see how that reacts with the other properties. There's no survey of how that interacts with the other properties, and I think that should be considered, because it could negatively affect everything. And then, as far as the 4-foot setback, they've stated that other properties on the canal have a 4-foot setback. No one has a 4-foot setback. If you look at their pictures, on page 8 of their briefing pictures, where that was brought up on the screen, you see that there are no 4-foot setbacks, so that is incorrect. Y'all see that?
We'll let you continue.
No, it's probably page 9.
I said,
yeah.
the buzzer means your 3 minutes were up, but we'll let you continue.
Oh, okay. I also think that a 4-foot setback, I mean, I can see issues where on the neighboring property owner to this, where, I mean, that's not big enough to put a boat. It's not big enough to put a jet ski. A plastic ocean kayak is 3 feet wide. So I can see where on the adjacent property owner, there's gonna be issues where there's gonna be people constantly trying to park in front of my property. And I think that that's a big issue, because we have that issue now with people crossing from the property to our property, where it's a B&B. And also I submitted pictures today that were of the mangroves. And if you've been out to the property, I gave Christie pictures today to forward to y'all. And I shot them down the property line.
Mr. Green, those never came through, so I did not receive the pictures today, so I don't have them in our email, but I did not receive them.
And I have them sent. My email show them sent. But anyway, I sent pictures today, and I think actually some of their pictures are, have y'all been to the property? Okay. So if you stand on the property line and you look down, you're looking out at mangroves. And if he says that mangrove roots can't be cut, well, they're gonna have to cut them just to put 4-foot down. There's no way you can come back 8 feet from that property line and not cut mangroves. It's impossible, if you look at what they had. But on the B&B website, you can obviously tell that they trimmed mangroves many times, right down to a 3-foot hedge, to where the dock was south of it. So, I think some of that's disingenuous. And there was a dock there,
little bit, we've given you more.
No, that's
than
fine.
enough. Okay, thank you.
That's fine.
Unless someone has a
You all
question.
read my email, you've seen my pictures. I wish you could have seen the waterfront pictures that I sent to Kristen. I did have one other question. I was wondering,
I can't answer.
did he answer?
No, I can't answer.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering what his relationship is to the dock company, because when I looked at their packet, he submitted it as part of the dock company. So I don't know.
Okay, let's let the next person have a turn.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Who's next? Anybody else? I think I saw, go ahead, Mr. Rubino. Mhm. Paul.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Paul Rubino. I live at 921 Valley Road. Me and my wife lived there about 9 years. So we're on the north side, adjacent property. And I don't want to reiterate everything that's already been said, and points that were just made are my concerns as well. The Airbnb being there, you know, there's privacy concerns, having that within 4 feet out towards the water. I mean, they're gonna have direct sight, into our yard, so we have those concerns. Also, something that's been alluded to, I think the packet that was submitted on page 16, there was a, 2022 aerial view that said that the other docks were infringing on setbacks. And that's not a recent photo. That is not 2022, it's probably not even 2021. There's 2 docks that are basically to the right of you, going eastbound, that aren't there anymore. I mean, they're not there. And the one that was directly next to you, that had to be removed because they didn't meet the setback requirements. So they had put the dock in, and then I guess the city came and said, you don't have a permit for this, had to remove it because they didn't meet the setback requirements. So that's that. Yeah, I mean, we just have concerns about Airbnbers. I have great concern for the south property, having their sight lines down the canal impacted us for privacy concerns. And just, you know, we all abide by the 15-foot rule, and, you know, I think the village should do that. So, that's all I have.
I have a quick question for you, sir.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, you have 2 responses here. One is in favor and one is not. My understanding is you didn't understand
Yeah.
the issue when you signed the boilerplate
Right.
Um,
Thanks for clearing that up.
initial.
Yeah, what happened was, I think it was after the storm, might have been after Ian. We were just walking the yard and I happened to meet, one of their family members. And, he just took me around the yard and he showed me the walkway. So they have an existing walkway that we've been talking about that goes out. And, he was just saying that, you know, it'd be great if we can clear that, and I may have to ask the city if I can clear some of the mangroves and some of the trees that are kind of going over the walkway that exists there. Will you sign something to that effect that it's okay by you? I said, yeah, that's fine. I didn't know he was gonna build something. I didn't know he was gonna add on to that existing walkway and build this triangular dock that, you know, he didn't say anything about that, so that's why I signed it.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Thank you.
Was there one other person who had their hands up? If there's, okay, so there's no one else who wants to speak in opposed to this, right?
No, it's not.
Okay, so now you're the you can come back and answer questions or something if it came up.
Hi, I'm Jessica Smith. I'm at 690 Delma Road. We're one street over. We want to live on the water, so the mangroves are big. You can't really enjoy the water. It's nice having the privacy, so I like that. But we'd like somewhere, you know, to raise our kids where we can have coffee, fish, maybe launch a kayak. I mean, it's very minimal what I think we're asking for. I won't touch the mangroves. I have never trimmed them. We've never trimmed them. I won't mess with it. I read the regulation. There's a lot going on with that. I don't mess with it. We've never trimmed it. That's why it's bigger, because I'm not gonna pluck mangroves out of the water. I won't do that. We
So you're gonna live there, or it's an Airbnb?
We wanna move in there, it's a future home for us.
Okay, but you're Airbnbing now, but you wanna live there eventually?
Yeah,
So
I'm
that's,
gonna
okay, I was just trying to make sure I understood exactly.
Yeah, so.
What was your name? Your name, please?
Jessica Smith,
Okay, who's Lisa Yates?
she's the owner,
What are you?
she's my mother-in-law.
All right.
Now, the county records show the owner lives in California?
Yes.
Okay.
This is like a family house.
Okay.
She wants to have an in-law suite, we wanna move in there with our kids, we're looking at options, it's in the works.
But presently you live at 690 Java Road?
Yeah, when it's over. But it's down on the water, so.
Did you have another?
I think I'm still allowed to rebut.
Yes, I was just gonna ask you. Oh,
She wanted to speak, but you didn't hear her.
oh, I'm sorry.
She was opposed.
Come on up, didn't hear you.
I'm Nancy Green, I live at 515 Cocoa House
You may wanna
Boulevard.
step up to the mic there.
I don't think it works, I can't hear it. Can you hear it?
Yeah. That'll be better, yeah. Thank you.
I have concerns because my husband and I are older, we've lived in this neighborhood for a long time. We got into a single-family, quiet home neighborhood, and it's turning into anything but that. He's a U.S. Merchant Marine, an engineer, so he's gone quite a bit. I'm alone, and it concerns me, the traffic, revolving door, next door, all the time, the people we don't know in our neighborhood. I don't feel real safe, I'm worried about liabilities, and, I do feel like a lot of those drawings were very misleading, cause that's not the way it is. And, I don't know what else to say. I'm just not for it, but I am. If they could repair the dock that was there in the past, it worked for them, it worked for us, it worked for everybody, and no variance was needed at all. So I'm not against repairing the dock that was there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, sir, did you wanna come up?
Yeah. So, let me forward a few things here. Okay, so, there were some statements that were made, I know, illegal, B&B, but I had discussion with staff that actually, they did have a license for it, it just recently expired, and they're gonna renew it, so anything that they were renting out was not even legal. It was licensed by the city for you guys to do that. Okay, a couple, interesting tidbits. I know the mangroves here has come up. The conspiracy theory about the fact that people let mangroves grow, to a variance that's kind of disheartening and unnerving. The photos that were sent to you by Mr. Green were old photos, like really old. They've been up there and they look great, but and sir, I know you were right there, so you know how thick they are at the moment. This was, and as a matter of fact, actually, this whole process, those photos that I showed you were photos that I had taken prior to any process, before I even put an application for a dock permit, before we were told to come for a variance. So that's an issue. If you've listened to so far, a lot of the complaints are about Airbnb, which that's not what this is about. This is about asking for a setback to access the water properly. Now, to give you guys kind of an idea, if you look up here, I ran some quick lines here, and to give you an idea, this is obviously Mr. Green's property. We talked about setbacks. His extension out into the water is, at the point at the end, is about 8 foot from the property line, which is then within your legal setbacks, okay? And it's not supposed to extend, it's supposed to actually curve the other direction, and so, you know, that's infringing on the property owner over here. And the other thing too is that I did ask for a review of that, just because I was looking at it and I'm like, that's a non-compliant dock. And the fact of the matter is that there is no permit on record for the city of Cocoa, and then I went to the records for the state of Florida, And there's no permit on record for that either. Now, I'm not trying to go after them, but I'm just saying, you have a non-compliant dock, and we're just asking for a basic, basic exception to the variance so we can put in a compliant dock under the regulations and rules. Now, the statement about where I did make this statement about everybody else had, I got it from this aerial. Now, at the time, I saw it when I went out there, and there were structures out there. It's great that the city has stepped up and told people to remove them, but as you can see to the one to the far right, that is sitting on the property boundary, which a lot of my interpretation was based on this. The other property next to Mr. Green on the other side, their boat lift is infringing on that property boundary also. So my statement is based on the data that I had available. I'm not trying to mislead council in any way whatsoever, but if you look at something like this, it's pretty obviously that there are other structures in it. Now, did I know that they were permitted or not? One of the things that was stated by Mr. Rubino was that they were removed because they didn't fit the setback. No, they were removed because they were not permitted. That's a big difference. We're asking for a permit, and we're doing it by the regulations. So that's the difference. So structures will have to either go back and get permitted and go for variance, or in this instance, they were told to be removed for failure to permit. That's a big difference. So I want to make sure that gets clarified. And in the permit, and staff can confirm this, what the homeowners are asking for this is just an ability to go out, enjoy the water, and, launch a kayak. They know they can't fit that boat. This is not going to happen. So. All right, so I just want to clarify a few things for the council that you guys have that, so you can understand where that's going. And realistically, some of the structures that are sitting there, besides infringing on the property boundaries, if you go to the end of some of those docks, if it wasn't for the mangroves being there, and I saw that being the property, you can actually see directly into the homeowners at 911 Bali if you go out on the end of that dock, because it sticks way, way, way further out than it is. So like I said, I believe that's a non-compliant. That's why I checked to find out permitting on that. Even though the structure may have been around, I believe it was mid-90s, you guys had permitting in the mid-90s, and so did the state. Permitting started back in the 80s, at least for the state of Florida, and as for Cocoa Beach, permitting's been around for a long time. So I just want to make sure everybody understands the clarity of everything, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
I do have a question for you. You mentioned Mr. Green's photos were very old.
On the Airbnb, yeah, they're outdated.
The
The Airbnb ones, because.
The Airbnb photos that he submitted.
Yeah, those were, even though on Airbnb, and I talked to the property owner, because the photos that I submitted were when I started this whole doc process.
Which was when?
Maybe about 6 months ago. And those Airbnb photos have been around for a long time. There's no way that they haven't been, they're not.
What do you mean a long time? They've owned the house since June of 2021?
That's from the home sale back in 2021. She just.
They're MLS on the bottom.
That's those, if you look at the photos, they should say MLS on the bottom. Okay. Well, if you look at Airbnb.
But they're from June, these photos are from June of 2021, correct?
Yeah, way back, yeah, correct.
Way back, keep saying way back, 2021.
Well, to me, 2021 is far enough back, yes. What the homeowner stated to me is that those photos are from 2021 from the original MLS photos, which means those were done, that trimming was done prior to the purchase by the homeowner. You understand? The trimming
I'm
was
not
done
casting any aspersions on who, I'm just saying when these photos were taken. That's all I
prior
care
to the
about.
purchase by the current homeowners, which is about 2021.
My mind.
Yeah, they're on the internet. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Let's start with you, go ahead.
And again, I'm having a hard time.
You have to come up, though.
When we bought our house, our dock was there. We've lived there for almost 18 years now. It was there, another hearing sort of like this, for another whatever, our dock got brought up again. The lady came in, had aerial views from way back, and like I said, the dock was there when we bought it. We haven't changed it, we haven't made it bigger, smaller, whatever, and we were told our dock was grandfathered in. So,
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, then I'll be. He needs to be sworn.
Sir, you haven't been sworn in.
I have not this morning, no ma'am. Sorry, I apologize for being late.
Can you please raise your right hand?
Yeah.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
You haven't been sworn in.
So I live down the street, 690 John Rowe, name's Forrest. I apologize for being late. I just wanted to speak in support of this. I've been here long enough to see the house before the owners bought it. It was a piece of junk. I've seen a lot of the houses that are getting built up. I think it's great to have some investment in our neighborhoods, investment in small businesses around here. So I just think this is a net gain for not only the neighborhood, but for the whole town, because I'm assuming you're a local business or, so I think it's good. So I just want to say that. I know a lot of people are against it, but I want to voice my support as a down the street neighbor. I'm not on Ollie, I'm on Java.
You said 690 Java?
Yep.
Where you live?
Yeah, this is my wife. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Get some clarity here, people.
just want to let that know. So Forest. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Levino, go ahead.
I just want to say,
You gotta come up, speak into the mic.
just want to say that you were talking about that dock that was removed because they didn't have a proper permit. Right. But it still would have been removed because.
Can you talk into the mic and not address?
Understood, but he just took
Excuse
it
me.
down because he knew he didn't meet the
Can you
setback.
talk into Mark and don't get into
Sorry.
battling with
I
people?
think you've heard me, but, that owner took down his dock. He didn't try to fight it because he knew he didn't meet the setback rules. It was plain and simple. He tried to put it up without getting a permit because he knew he didn't meet the setback rules.
Okay, thank you. We go. This is the last time I'll let you come up for 1 minute, okay? Okay. Thank you. Otherwise, you'll be here till midnight.
I'll be sure. Okay. You brought up our dock. When you bought our property, we bought it with the dock. And we understand that it was grandfathered in. And when he says that he didn't know about the other docks that had been removed, he did the survey, he did the property inspection, and he submitted page 8, which is the current picture of the canal. So he knew that there were no other properties with 4-foot setbacks, because it's in his packet. On page 8, the picture shows that. And that is the most current picture. And if he did the inspection of the property and had the surveys done, he knows that very well. Okay? And as far as the old pictures of the mangroves trimmed off B&B, they weren't that old. They're not that old. Because the pictures show a deck in front of that house, between the house and the mangroves. And that deck is very new.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So if there's no more opposition or in favor, we're gonna close public speaking. We're gonna turn this over to us. Well, you know, I'm a believer in compromise. Anybody see any compromises here? No?
In my opinion, and you're the chairman, I don't know that we sit here to
I'm just
do
curious.
compromises.
We can
You know,
discuss
you-
it as an open, you know, we can't
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
behind in sunshine, so the only place we can talk about something is in an open forum.
But we're here to answer the petition, not to solve their problems.
But we've been known to come up with some creative
Yeah, I'm not sure that's
conditions.
appropriate, though. I'm just giving you my opinion.
Becky, can we do creative conditions?
So Bill, when you did that in the past, that was not appropriate?
There, the variance could have some conditions.
There you go. And are we allowed to change and add?
Are you allowed to?
Change.
Add conditions, take off conditions, create a condition?
With
You
the main-
could approve it with conditions,
That
if
we
you
make
chose
up.
to do that.
Not
They-
the ones that staff did, but the ones that we do tonight.
You could,
Exactly, and that's all perfectly legal. It's been done in the past.
it has.
Okay, that's all I'm asking.
Do we have suggestions for that though, with the fact that the mangroves are there, so that seems to be a huge factor in the way that they're trying to build, or the shape of the size of the property? So I don't really know what unless someone has one, that's a
I mean,
condition.
If I own that home and I see, I think I even drove by that house a year and a half ago when it was for sale. And boy, it was a disaster. And they've done an excellent job, and that doesn't mean we've gotta give them a variance, cause they did a nice job.
That was 2 owners ago, too.
Well,
They
however
didn't do
that-
the current renovations.
But, does that mean we get to reward them for doing it? No. But do we get to be something reasonable? Yes. Now, what is reasonable? They're not asking, I don't know, do we say instead of 4 foot, make it 3 foot, make it 2 foot, make it a little 1 foot? No, that, you know, now we're getting ridiculous. But to see what they wanna do as presented may be a little bit difficult. But if we put stricter condition on them, make it 10 feet instead of 20 feet or whatever the distance is, and go along in that line. So as we discuss this, sort of keep that in mind. You know, they got waterfront, they paid for waterfront. Everybody else around them has water a lot more than what they're even doing because of the mangrove situation. So let's throw something out on the table and see if it makes sense. If it doesn't, we can vote appropriately.
By your logic, they bought waterfront, but they were aware of this, that it was a small waterfront.
Right.
So
But they didn't make it.
buyer beware.
Yeah, but that's sort of nasty thinking. It's always
Hey,
nice.
the Latins know what they're talking about.
Yeah, it doesn't happen today too often, but we sort of closed it. I don't want to continue
Well,
anymore.
we're just gonna give you a compromise if you wanted, that the homeowners are willing to, if you wanna put a stipulation that they can only use it for kayak and waterfront enjoyment and no motorboats or jet skis, that would be a great compromise.
Would that go with the property if we did that?
Would that
You
what?
said if we put a condition.
That would be virtually impossible to enforce.
I get you.
And
Question for staff, in terms of previous dock construction permits, have we ever seen where mangroves have been changed or altered to permit a dock in the past 5 years? Or do you recall?
If mangroves have been altered.
Yeah, similar in the
install a dock?
situation, we heard that it would be impossible to change mangrove or get that permitted. Have we seen the state permit trim or cut or removal of mangroves?
From my
Yeah, just
knowledge,
recollection.
I do not recall,
Mhm.
having that situation, and I've been here for about 5 years,
Yeah.
so, not to my knowledge.
Yeah,
but
certainly not
typically-
regularly.
Yeah,
Okay.
trying to think like some of the commercial properties possibly, but I really can't think of anything that, residential that is this type of request.
How would it, if they ever wanted to, you can see where they made, it shows a picture in here where they had some erosion. And suppose they wanted to put a seawall in there. You think they could do that? And make a cap on a seawall? There's not a whole lot of shoreline that's exposed because of those mangroves, but there is some. And the mangroves is protecting, where the mangroves are, the shoreline is protecting their property. But what about where the little bit that it isn't? Maybe they could, if they built a seawall there, maybe they could have a little walkway off of that seawall. When you build a seawall,
What do you mean by walkway?
some kind of a walkway where they can get access to step into the water instead of keep walking down the natural dirt here and even eroding it more, building something up in there.
Are you talking like along the like their property line, like
Where
on
the
the
property
water?
line is where there's no mangrove.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, but I do have to agree with Bill on this. We're not really here to do this for people.
No, but we're
They
here
need to
to
come up with their
discuss.
own ideas and come here and apply for those ideas.
Yeah.
That's a hard feeling. We're a community board. We're all one small town. If we can help someone, we can help them. We're not gonna break the law. We're not gonna give someone fragrant.
You could help them by suggesting that they
I
come and
just-
apply again and redo all that, but
Another
for us to
another
adjust.
$1,000, but,
So, in looking at this, and one of the things I think through with the variances that we look at for residential especially is special conditions. And I'm trying to kind of sort through on this in terms of a special condition that would be causing hardship. And I can kind of get to the hardship being you've got a waterfront property and limited or no access to it. And I can definitely say, knowing that the city has not permitted or is not necessarily readily aware of where mangroves have been allowed to be removed. I have seen properties in Cocoa Beach in the past 5 years that mangroves were there and mangroves are no longer there. Whether that was permitted or not, it doesn't sound like that. It's regularly done and the mangroves seem to regularly disappear. So it may well be that the mangroves being there qualifies as a special condition. And if the state is not necessarily avidly willing to allow for the cutback of them. I would say hardship being limited or no access to waterfront, up to the water of a waterfront property, and the mangroves in the condition that they're in being a hardship that not necessarily caused by the homeowner. Just throwing that out there for discussion. What do you guys think?
You see your point on that? Like, that's a good, like, I appreciate your perception of that.
I appreciate that as well, but I'm looking at this from the perspective that we have, and I'll step back for a second. I think the Airbnb issue is completely irrelevant.
Separate.
To what we're doing here. So, for whatever that's worth, we have neighbors on both sides who are in opposition. I think that has to be given some serious consideration. The applicant's spokesperson, I'm sorry, a professional who has spoken with us, has indicated that they're willing to acquiesce and accept a restriction that there can only be kayak, canoe launching.
But she said they can't be.
Just can't be
Not
regulated.
Oh, well, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
they've agreed that that would be an acceptable condition. So to me, that says that all they're looking for is access to the water for a kayak or a canoe. And I think you could build a 15-foot by 3-foot wide dock along the shoreline that would accomplish all of that without any variance.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking they have the ability to accomplish what they want without a variance being granted.
Without going in front of the mangrove.
Exactly.
Like along
yes.
the waterway.
Along this water line right here.
And I will say that is my property is built that way.
Okay.
I don't have anything that goes out into the water. I have a dock thing that runs across the back of my yard. So that is exactly what I was thinking, because that's what I currently have and don't step out at all.
And I'm not suggesting it as a compromise, I'm suggesting it as.
I'm seeing what
a
you're saying as well,
solution.
because it is exactly what my property is.
It would
So.
mitigate the hardship and meet the minimum variance required,
I
which you're
think
saying
so.
would be a no variance.
And would give
Right.
them,
It wouldn't
From what I hear,
require
what
a
they're asking.
variance.
Well, that's what
we're
it
Yeah,
doesn't.
it would not require a
Right,
variance.
exactly.
Just build across
Exactly.
an area that's open.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask one other question. I'm not a boater, but you keep saying they don't have access to the water. Why not? Why can't you just walk down the
Yeah.
grass
That's what
and
I'm
go in the
wondering
water?
Well, that's kind of my point.
Right.
You legally right now could build a 3-foot dock there with no variance, and you have the access
You're talking along the property.
along the
Along the
property.
Okay, instead of going out.
Right.
Okay, right, and I agree with that too.
That's a good point.
I'd watch.
The simple,
Oh, yeah.
if that's what this board wants, then we design it.
Well, we're not
If they don't-
mandating
if saying
them.
they don't need it,
Yeah.
then
We could deny the variance and they could
go do
decide that's something they want to do or not. You know, it's.
But is there any, there's no way we can approve a variance tonight. My feelings from the questions in the board is that, someone make a note, motion. Unless,
Who's
well,
the
we've got
alternate?
2 variances, one on each side.
You're the acting alternate tonight, correct? Do we know?
Yeah, Jen is.
I'll go ahead. If nobody else wants to step
Is
up.
there any, is everybody cleared
Yeah,
up?
are we all
Josh, you got
out
anything
discussed?
more? You seem to look at things more analytical, being an engineer.
No.
Hopefully. No, I think some good points were made.
Okay. Jenna, you're gonna be voting tonight. You have anything to say? Hello? I don't like this it's too much curve.
Can't see.
All right, well, I'd like to make a motion to deny variance number 1 in case number PZ-22-27-V1. I move to deny the variance request due to the fact that the applicant has not satisfactorily demonstrated that all standards required by LDC section 439.d to grant a variance have been met. The specific standards not met, and I believe that the one that I'm gonna hang my hat on is that,
Number 5.
yeah, I think that's, I agree. Number 5, the variance is a minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure, as I just very recently suggested.
Could you repeat your suggestion, because you lost me there?
No, we're
Should
we're in the
we-
middle of a motion here.
Yeah, we're in the middle of a motion, but, okay. We will as soon as we make the vote, is that fair enough?
Yeah.
Okay, so does everybody on the board understand the motion?
Yeah.
Is there a second?
You just
I
read what the attorney wrote.
I think it's important, could someone read it back? The
Or-
motion?
I'll
Read
restate it
read the
again if you
motion
like.
again?
Do you want me to read it?
Was it exactly what was written down there?
I read it
Okay.
verbatim,
Yes.
yep.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, do we have any more discussion? Tabitha, would you like to call the question?
Ms. Manning?
Yes, same.
Yes for the
Yes
Denial.
to deny.
denial.
Yes to deny, sorry.
Mr. Geiger?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Goldberg?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Haynes?
No.
And Ms. Tunsis?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion to deny passes 4-1.
We have another-
Just to address the gentleman's, we didn't make any requirement or
No, I'm not saying that, you were making a suggestion.
the suggestion, you, without a permit, can build a 3-foot wide dock along the
Wait.
water line
Hold on.
Without a variance.
without a variance.
Without a
Right.
variance,
3 foot wide.
but with
3
the
foot wide.
permit.
So I can go from the property boundary, that whole length without
before
asking
we
for
open?
variance.
Up until the point where the mangroves may prevent you from doing so from other laws or
So 3
regulations.
foot out into the water, right up on the guy's property boundary, the whole filling.
That's my understanding of what is currently,
No, you'd have to get a
Yeah,
permit.
so what they're saying then, I have to
Isn't
go
that what I
back for
said
variance
in
for
the
that.
first?
no, I don't believe so.
No,
No.
No
Before we even
variance,
started
but there
this.
is a 5-foot setback for the 3-foot.
So
We
we
got
can
jumped ahead
eliminate
about
us to
25.
At the side property line?
Yes.
yes.
A 5-foot setback? I thought you could
Yeah.
do that to the property.
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
well, regardless, there's an ability to put something there that would,
You'd be able
We're-
to launch a
I don't want to
kayak.
get into designing.
Yeah, we did enough.
Situation.
Yeah, we made the suggestion.
Yeah.
Now let's move on to that next page in the second variance, wherever it is. Variance 2 on page 3.
Yep. I like to make a motion to deny variance number 2 in case number PZ-22-27-V2. I move to deny the variance request due to the fact that the applicant has not satisfactorily demonstrated that all standards required by LDC section 4-39.d to grant a variance have been met. The specific standards not met include, and again, I'll go back to condition number 5.
I'll second.
And we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none. That's it. Let's call the question again.
Mr. Geiger?
Yes, did we get a second?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes.
Yes this time. Mr. Goldberg?
Yes to the motion.
Mr. Haynes?
I'll say yes this time, just in case.
Ms. Tunsis?
Yes.
Ms. Manning?
Yes.
Say one of you.
I know.
Well, unfortunately, we tried, and you'll make it work. Let's see, where are we on the general public comments? Anyone? Yes, ma'am.
Man, Scott, can somebody put the picture back up so I can show you something that I wanted to address? Just a picture of the property.
We're done
with
discussing the
property
property.
line or whatever, and water.
We're
where the
done.
property-
We're done discussing the
We're
property.
done with that.
I understand that, but my comment has to do with the future idea, that's all. I have a general public comment. Put any property up there. Okay, so don't put a picture that was up there before, it's just for the property. There have been increasing issues going on in the city that have to do with the trespass and liability if you have rental property next door to you, people coming on your property, on your dock, and so on and so forth. And they're, over the years, and I'm sure the chair knows what I'm speaking of, there are these like 3.5-foot chain link extensions that hang out over the water. And you could put that as a condition sometime. When people are saying, hey, people are there at this dock and they're partying and they're renting and all that, to make a condition where they have to put up this extension out over the water like that. So nobody can come around, your dogs can't go to your neighbor's property, and neither do people get to come around from property line to property line over that extension? Because you get on it, you usually fall in the water, so. And also to post it, no trespassing facing an adjacent property if you wanted to do that, put it in their face, since people usually don't read the rules around here anyway. But the other thing I wanted to address is this board has the charge of finding the hardship. And I know it gets kind of soft about what's a hardship and what isn't. But also, under Robert's rules, which you're supposed to be operating under, and this is a growing problem around the state, is not stating the motion in the affirmative. If you would do that, then the vote is yes that you like it and no that you don't. And under Robert's rules, and I know there was one thing, a state constitutional amendment, I think it was Constitution, where they did not do a very good job with that ballot question. But whenever you state the question, if you want it, you state it in the affirmative for yes, or then people vote yes if they want it and no if they don't. It's very simple, and it makes it clear to everybody. You all are I hate to say, always discussing. When you're for it, you don't know whether you're going to say it for it or whether you're going to vote against it to deny it. So, and I also would like to know, based on a question that was brought up by Christy, how old are the records in Cocoa Beach? I mean, where are they accessing them? I know they have records management and everything for the state. And the city clerk, she packs up records and sends them to storage. And now we have a lot of digital records that are easier to access. But how long are we supposed to be digging in the records? And how old are the records in the city? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more general public comments? How about staff reports tonight? Staff? Nothing? How about member reports?
No staff reports.
No? Okay.
No, just,
Any member reports?
yeah, I'd like to say thank you for your service to our city and
Yeah,
appreciate your chairmanship.
Yeah, 23 years. This is my last night being on the board.
This is your last time.
This is it. So I'm not going to be involved anymore, but it's sad, and I'll help the city. Thank you.
Well, don't we have some other things we need to manage?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. I mean, this is the first I've heard of this, so.
Well, that's it. I lost. But I would have been a commissioner, but instead, now because Mike Miller didn't run, who appointed me, there's no one, unless one of the new commissioners appoint me, or
Oh.
maybe Ben won't reappoint you and appoint me.
You don't, no, wait a minute. Wait a minute, you don't give up your seat just because Mike Miller is not there.
Really?
No,
Well, the reappointments will be coming out.
no, if there is a reappointment, I don't know, your term is for how long?
4 years, right?
Until I serve at the pleasure of the commission. If he's
he
no longer a
coincides with Mike
commissioner,
Miller.
which happens tomorrow night,
Okay,
the
but-
18th.
But we've addressed that with some other, okay, Christie?
Friday?
The term expires 1/3/20.
Thank you.
That's not right. I believe it's January 15th, 2023.
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah,
That's when
you
the
don't,
reappointments
you
come?
don't go away
Still be stuck.
just because your
Oh, so I still
commissioner
got
gets
another
hit by a
meeting next
Mack
month,
truck or
maybe.
something.
Then you get
I
I
mean-
won't be here. I'm leaving town for a month.
So
Oh,
this is,
well.
if
His
you're not-
sentence starts next month.
What did you say, the 23rd of January?
I believe it's January 15th.
I'll be back before then.
We may have a meeting in December.
I won't
It'll
be.
on the 21st.
I won't be here. But anyways, I enjoyed it for 23 years, and I thank the city for keeping me here. And good night. Oh, I gotta adjourn. There we go.